All right. All right, everyone, we're going to get started now. So let me pull up this PowerPoint. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Okay, can everybody hear me? Excellent. So we're just going to take this into a full screen. There we go. All right, so welcome everyone to this Learning Week presentation on cash and voucher assistance. We're really excited that we could pull together such an interesting group of speakers. I'll do a very brief introduction and then hand it over to Blake. So we're very fortunate to have Blake from CALP to give us a perspective from this global partnership. He'll be followed by Cecile, who is our cash and markets advisor here at Action Against Hunger USA. Then Cecile will be followed by Celine, who will be presenting some research from MAMOUT and some lessons learned from this project. And then finally, we'll have Regis from the Haiti team to share some lessons learned in Haiti. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Blake, and you guys can just tell me when you'd like the slides to change if you've sent me.
Thank you so much, Lucy. I'm Blake Stabler. I'm the Capacity Building Officer for the Americas for the Cash Learning Partnership. Action Against Hunger is, of course, a member of the Cash Learning Partnership and actually host the Cash Learning Partnership. Action Against Hunger USA host our Washington office, and Action Against Hunger Spain host our West Africa office in Dakar. So Action Against Hunger, of course, has been quite involved in cash over the years, but I wanted to back way up and talk about the really big picture, is that cash and voucher assistance is growing as a proportion of overall international humanitarian assistance. So unfortunately, the latest figures we have are 2016, because as anyone who's ever put anything into FTS knows, it takes a long time to get the data out in any usable form. These numbers are by development initiatives, which attempts to measure humanitarian assistance. So of the 27.3 billion US dollars of assistance provided in 2016, it's estimated that around 10% were in the form of cash and vouchers. That's a very inexact number. We don't really know. It's not something that is measured in exactly a scientific way. Record keeping is very poor, but we do know this is something that's growing from year to year. And we can see the prominence of cash in a lot of the big responses recently in the Middle East and the various Syria-related responses, and increasingly in South America and the Venezuela-related responses that are rather large. I think cash is so prominent in these. These are middle-income countries, for the most part, that actually look quite different from most of the countries Action Against Hunger works in, though we do work in several of these responses. Now, trying to think about cash throughout the sectors, cash is still most prominent probably in food security responses. And we do have pretty good evidence that our normal food security outcomes, whether food consumption, livelihoods change, household dietary diversity of some sort, are impacted by cash transfers or by food vouchers. Shelter and wash are increasingly using cash and vouchers to various extents. I'd say shelter is probably a bit ahead of wash in that. And so the question, being that this is a presentation for Action Against Hunger, is where does nutrition fit in? And I'd say nutrition is using cash and vouchers a lot more than, say, health or protection or education. And like those sectors, there's some real concerns about quality and about ensuring people still have access to services that they need. But also, like WASH, there's a lot of behavior change aspects to nutrition programming. And this has been a bit less clear. In general, if we provide someone with cash, they are perfectly willing to spend it on food. Now, exactly what type of food and how they're going to prepare it and all the many things that then impact on nutrition, that's a bit more complicated. And so nutrition is right behind WASH and being a field that's very dependent on behavior change, is definitely open to the idea of incorporating markets more because that will be more sustainable in the long run. But how exactly to do that isn't clear. We're also seeing a lot more use of multi-sectoral cash, especially in these very large displacement crises across the world, but also in smaller crises. So there's a lot more, you'll read a lot about, there are a lot of acronyms, and humanitarians are good at inventing acronyms. So multi-purpose cash grants, you'll see multi-purpose cash assistance, MPC or MPCA, depending on who's writing it. And so there's a lot of multi-purpose cash out there now. And I think where we are as a field is looking much more at how can people coordinate across sectors so cash is useful and preserve its flexibility. And what are sort of shared ways of doing that? We've seen a lot of movement towards shared platforms. For example, Action Against Hunger is a member of the Collaborative Cash Delivery Platform, the CCD, which is an NGO-based platform. And in December, 4 UN agencies, WFP, UNHCR, UNICEF, and OCHA, announced that they're creating a common cash system. And unfortunately, they didn't give us a lot more information. But I think overall, in the world of policy, there's a tension between taking advantage of the efficiencies of cash and preserving the quality of programming. I think that's for nutrition practitioners, that is definitely what we're concerned about with cash. It's making sure the programs are high enough quality to have the impact that they will have. And now I will pass on to Cecile.
Thanks, Blake. So we're going to look into the cash perspective from ACF. We've been providing cash and vouchers assistance for more than 25 years now, and since 20,000, we've got now an increased portfolio of the cash and vouchers assistance. Just to show you where we stand right now. So in 2017, we were 37 countries were actually integrated cash transfer program within their strategy. It was representing like 19% of the beneficiaries were receiving cash and vouchers assistance. 10% of the whole assistance volume was done through cash and voucher assistance. As you will see on the figures over the last few years, there's been a decrease of the volume, which is mostly linked to the huge dependency that we have to major crises, like for example in Lebanon or in Iraq or Nigeria, where we provided a huge amount of cash to the beneficiaries. And as Blake mentioned, there is a lot of cash and vouchers interventions assistance are linked with FSL projects. Within ACF in 2016, it was 99% of our cash and vouchers assistance that were linked to FSL projects only. This is changing, as Blake mentioned. It's a global change, but it's also true within ACF, where we have more and more WASH and nutrition projects that are covered and that are using cash and voucher modality. Can you change the slide, please? Thank you. So within ACF, we think that we have a leader role to play within the cash and voucher assistance, linking it with nutrition security. We are pushing for cash and voucher assistance to be integrated to all sectors. I would mention that we're not just focusing on food security, but also on nutrition, health, and nutrition. And we would like also to have the cash being more in a general strategy based on a cash plus, where cash intervention will be a component of a larger and a bigger project. Which is quite different. So we have two different things. We have the cash and voucher assistance that will be multi-purpose, as Blake mentioned, for the emergency. So where we're going to provide cash and unconditional cash to meet their basic need, the instant basic need. And then when we move to more transition or development project, then we will use cash as a modality, to be a component of the larger project. When we look into the program design, we have a study that shows that the underweight women and undernourished children are not found in the poorest 20% of the households, and around half are not found in the poorest 24%, which means that cash and voucher assistance might not be the solution to solve the nutrition issues, but it has to be linked to an economic situation. So what we would like to push forward within ACF is to look way more into we need to improve the assessment prior to the design of any project to ensure that it will be answering to economic needs. Otherwise, there's no need to do a cash and voucher assistance. And if there is a need for the cash and voucher assistance, then we need to have a tool there to look into the amount that we're going to distribute based on the minimum expenditure, which will guarantee a better impact as we'll be covering more needs, but also looking into individual, who we're going to distribute to. Is it going to be an amount that we're going to distribute to the household or to the individual? This is something that we really need to look into. Further to this, there is also this issue of targeting that we need to look into and better understand how and we're going to target. Because for the moment we have limited impact in terms of targeting. When we're going to target, are we targeting the right person? So we need to use that. We know today that we cannot do some standalone criteria. For example, we cannot target only some children because it might have a negative impact and might have a do no harm. We might have a do no harm issues. So this is something that we really want to look into. And the third part is looking into the frequency and the seasonality on when we distribute the cash. That is important. I mean, to make sure that we cover, for example, the lean season. This is the thing that we need also to integrate. So so that's why we're pushing inside ACF to look into the program design to improve the impact that we could have with our cash and voucher assistance. In order to look way more into the impact, we also need to go beyond just the routine monitoring that we're doing and integrate some impact indicators within our current program. In order to do so, we have to ensure that research is also integrated to any program that we do around cash and voucher assistance. This is something that will help us actually define and define our strategy for the future. So we have started to integrate researches within our strategy. So we did it through the REFANI and the MAMOUT. So the REFANI was done in 3 countries, Pakistan, Niger, and Somalia. So the cash and voucher assistance, so the results are that the cash and voucher assistance improved household food security in all 3 countries, but there was no improvement on food security from the fresh food vouchers. It also improved household diet diversity in Pakistan and Somalia, but there was no improvement in the household diet diversity from the fresh food vouchers. The size of the cash, the amount could be one factor that influenced effectiveness. Only the double cash, where we gave the double ration arm in Pakistan, demonstrate any impact on preventing acute malnutrition. Even then, it was transient and not sustained much beyond the intervention period. It was also found that it has an impact on the stunting, but only in Pakistan. And the nutrition impact may be modulated by seasonality and infectious disease. So the recommendation based from this research was that the impact of the cash and voucher assistance should be assessed within wider humanitarian context. it may have multiple positive outcomes, but study design are not able to capture well their multiplicity and or account for their pathways. Certain design features must be considered to optimize cash and voucher assistance for nutrition, including integration, the cash plus, the size, and the restrictions. The research in humanitarian context is challenging, but key for promoting evidence-based intervention. Stakeholders should work together to enable comparable studies on cash and voucher assistance and optimize generability. The future research needs to integrate enhancing cash and voucher assistance for nutrition and health outcome, optimizing cost, benefit, and cost effectiveness analysis, and the use of fresh food voucher, which could have negative and counterproductive outcome, like it happens in Pakistan. And we also need to look into the post-intervention impact on stunting. Now we're going to hand over to Céline, who is going to present the MAMOUT result.
So hi everybody. So the MAMOUT research project was led in east of Burkina Faso in the Tapua region. It was objective is to evaluate the effectiveness, cost, and of multi-annual and seasonal and conditional cash transfer to prevent acute malnutrition in new children. It was done with a two-arm RCT, randomized controlled trial. It was led during 2 lean seasons of 2 different years between July and November for year 2013 and 2014, and then we continue to have data collecting all the way long and analysis of the data and finding present to the community and then different type of publication. The amount was 10,000 francs per month per household, which was calculated thanks to the HEA cap. May we go to the other slide? Great. So unfortunately, we don't see any impact on the MAM level. So we don't see any reduction of acute malnutrition in that program. Few hypotheses are done, especially according to the amount. It's very well documented thanks to the 2 researchers at the time, Audrey and Freddy, so you can find all the different information on NHF on our intranet. Like for Refani, food security, it was better with increase of different dietary diversity for children and mothers. We also see an increase of health center frequentation, improvement of children motor development, improvement in breastfeeding practices, same for good practice in WASH, and also something that we don't expect at all at the beginning, but because they are targeting especially women, we see some empowerment of them with more decision taking in the household and a different time use, especially to take more care of the children. So some benefit effect on that part. And then the cost effectiveness was clearly stated that can be more effective than other type of programming, but with no result on MAM level. Next slide, please. So they do quite a lot of different documents that you will find again on the intranet, but they also try to do some lesson learned from the MAMOUT operational part. So they especially stated that we have to calculate the amount based on the minimum expenditure basket, and we have to consider cost for diet for the food part, which was not done at that time. It was based on HEA, and it's something like maybe some was part of the mistake. The duration also should be considered, especially temporality, when it has to be given, etc., because that's something that come back a lot from beneficiary. They don't see that EUCT, so unconditional cash transfer, as a standard response. It's not enough, so it has to be integrated to address a complex need. It's a cash plus that Cécile presented you a bit before. the modality cost has to be integrated in the maybe calculation, or at least in the transfer part. So that's something that was a bit misunderstood by the population in that specific research. And finally, cost efficiency has to be taken into account since the very beginning of the project, because they take that at the middle of the project, and it was a bit difficult to follow perfectly. So if the two research from ACF doesn't see any impact on acute malnutrition, it's not the case for everything. So maybe we can change side and go for the FOI. So it was cash, the FOI of November 2015 is a literature review of all the research evidence on cash impact on nutrition outcomes. So it was a broad one. You can find both the short and the long report on the NONG forum too. And it was presented to various actors. And the main finding was there are consistent evidence of positive impact on the food security part, so dietary diversity and increase of food expenditure for any cash and voucher assistance. Only a growing consistent evidence of positive impact for health services, wasting, stunting, child dietary intake, and economy of household, and very limited evidence for all these things that we are following. Most growing part of evidence means that we have more and more research searching for that and having some positive impact on that, but there are quite a lot of things that are still not followed during the different research, so we don't have enough evidence to conclude anything. So two things that we have to continue. We think that we have significant number of research who have positive impact on acute malnutrition, in fact, both wasting and stunting, with different type of implementations that show different effects. And that's something that we have to continue to search for, is which type of implementation is the most effective to see how we can address malnutrition in general. And fresh food voucher that they will present for IT is one of the ways that we are exploring increase of dietary diversity, especially for children. Thank you.
Thank you, Celine. Regis?
Yes.
All right, floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Some troubles to be connected. Just in the room, I'm with my colleague, Celine Nelly, who is in charge of some activities regarding food voucher distribution in Haiti, in northwest Haiti. He's gonna to start the discussion, this session, and they're gonna to follow after.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. So I'm Nelly Nidja. I'm working as a field co on northwest of Haiti, and we currently work on the Sanonga project, that is a project of food vouchers. So with regard to the purpose of food vouchers, it's to strengthen local markets through a chain approach from producer to consumers. In other words, it means an ensure connection between all local actors, producers, sellers, population, in order to meet the needs and provide economic and social redynamization with a special focus on most vulnerable peoples. With regard to actors of food voucher, there is 5 actors. So first of all, Action Against Hunger, who is in charge of the project management. We've got targeting committees who are composed with one authority representative. In Haiti, they are named CASEC. It means Conseil administratif de section communale. 1 municipality representative, and 3 community-based organization representatives. And all of them are named by their colleagues. And the method for targeting communities is frequency list, but we will talk about it just after. There is also the microfinancing institution, who are elected by call of tenders by following action against hunger process, and they are exclusively in charge of the cash transfer during the Voucher distribution and during the exchange also in the market. Then we've got the sellers. They are also identified by Action Against Hunger on local market exclusively. They are sellers of fresh and dry products, and we are in charge of their visibility, notably with kitchen apron, art, badge for visibility. And then all the beneficiaries who are selected with regard to criteria of vulnerability. In terms of the Voucher process, so first of all, we've got beneficiary targeting. So as I told you, beneficiaries are targeted throughout the frequency list methods. It means that a beneficiary will be identified with regard to the frequency of occurrence of their name in the different lists identified by the targeting members. Then we got beneficiary investigation. So beneficiary investigation deal with household incomes, land and livestock ownership, number of dependent, number of children, including starving children under 5. Then we've got cash transfer to the MFI. So Action Against Hunger will make a transfer to this institution in order they could be present during distribution with beneficiary, and in order they could make the change also during the day of market. Then we've got Voucher distribution with the beneficiary. Voucher exchange on local markets. So it's generally realized through 2 weeks maximum, and the exchange is only possible during market days. And then there is a Voucher refunds. There is a Voucher refunds on the market with the MFI and the different sellers. And during all this process, we've got VIAMO, the complaint reporting. It's an hotline who allows to collect complaint, issue, question with regard to the program or the targeting process. It's part of meal activities. We also got market price monitoring, and it would be focused on the basket monitoring. And we've got 10 products that we follow, that we monitor on the market. It's rice, corn, wheat, beans, sugar, oil, fruit, vegetable, fish and meat. Then we've got from the Voucher distribution to the Voucher refunds awareness training, focus on the beneficiary. It could deal with good hygiene practices, disaster risk reduction, or income generating activities. And then we've got from Voucher exchange on local market and Voucher refunds, we've got trades tracking. Tracking means that we've got the staff on the field, on the market, and they are present to facilitate exchange on the market between beneficiary and sellers, and between sellers and MFI from at the end of the market day. Regis.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about voucher relevance in Haiti situation, Haiti context. To be briefly, for our beneficiaries, it's to promote accessibility to verified diet, because As you know, Haiti, it's not have many roads. Our beneficiaries are mainly in the campaign in rural areas. If you put in on the place the voucher system, they can find what they need to diversify their diet nearby in the local markets, because they don't have to make a long distance to go to find basic needs in the nutrition on a long-way market. And it increase purchasing power and limit the use of erosive livelihood strategy as to sell their livestock, some bad practice, or some, I can say, prostitution of young girls, robbery, and something like this. And after, they can also to prevent malnutrition, because we combine consumption of dry products and fresh products as fish, vegetables, and so on. For sellers, it's increase sellers and therefore profit and livelihood. It's increase self-financing capacity to reduce the reliance seller to indebtedness to buy new products. So with voucher system, we create a link with vendors, local institution of microfinance, and it increases also the local economic in the rural area, and also improve standard nearby with regard to hygiene. Is in the rural areas in Haiti, the vendors, they can put the product on the ground without to cover them. And with a voucher system, we approach beneficiaries, vendors, to keep our products hygienically, covering them, to put on the hygienic stands. And it's also increase the political loyalty, strength social bonds. Because if you look in rural areas, our poor, our vulnerable, they're not linked with vendors, because they are not participating in the local economic. But to link them, they discuss, and our vulnerable are seen as now not charge of community, but some people who can contribute in the local economy. For producers also, it's a good thing, because if you put on the place vouchers, the local producers, they get a market, they increase the production, and it's linked also some neighbor localities. If we are operating in the locality targeting of our activities, and there is not enough local products, neighbor locality can produce and deliver in the local market. It's increased also the link with producers, vendors, and the beneficiaries with neighboring locality. So it's increased also agriculture sector, mainly to produce locally, and we accompany them to continue to increase the productivity. Any question? You can pass over the second slide. Okay. As I said earlier, it's a compensate isolation of certain localities. A community department, notably for Northwest, suffer from lack of road infrastructures. As we see here in Haiti, we can start the voucher system if they are lack. I can say for dry products, if the vendors in department they don't have capacity to respond to the demand, they can go in other department when we have enough local producers and to come with them in the own departments. It's an increase also in macro in department level to strengthen the economic local economy. So, as I said earlier, it's similar to local production and the consumption. Because in our vision, it's to make a chain from producer, vendor, and the customer to be connected and to respond with other as a package. The voucher system, it's very easy to monitor, because if we have the strand of voucher, we can calculate which quantity of fresh food is consumed by our beneficiaries, which proportion of dry items they consume in their diet, and so we can see easier our impact. So I think I can stop for here. If you have any question, we are here to detail.
Fantastic. Thank you, Régis, and to all our other participants today. I think this webinar has given us a multi-viewpoint look at some of the challenges and the opportunities of implementing cash and voucher assistance. We've left a little time for questions and discussion. So first, are there any questions from our participants who we haven't heard from yet today? Simply unmute yourself and go ahead.
Okay. As you know, we had a problem to be connected easier. We don't have follow the presentation. For the moment, we don't have any question. If you have any, we are gonna to ask. But for the moment, it's clear for us.
Great, thanks, Régis. And yes, please feel free to have a discussion between participants as well if you have any questions on each other's presentations. This is the space to learn from each other for that.
Hello?
Yes?
You can come back, please, your question.
Did we have a question?
Hello?
Yes?
Yeah. I think you can come back in with your question. I didn't hear very well with my microphone. The connection is here.
Yeah, no, I know we're multiple connections now. No, I was simply opening the floor to any discussion between the participants. If you have questions on each other's presentations, now is also the time.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, hello, we can hear you. Okay, I think we're having some internet issues on the questions. Please feel free to also type your questions in the chat and we can read them out if anything is unclear. If there are no further questions, we can also
Hi, Lucy. This is Ellen. My call got canceled, so I'm still here. But maybe I can spur on kind of a question from some of the threads that I kind of pulled from the different presentations today, which were all really interesting. At the top, Blake mentioned that Calp has seen that a lot of the money that is actually given by cash transfers is being spent on food. And I know that when we calculate the amount of cash that we're going to give, we typically do it around kind of food security concerns, right? Minimum expenditure basket, that sort of thing. Possibly some behavior change messaging, even if it's kind of a light touch, and how they should be spending this money for food. So I don't know if any of the panelists would have comments, but I wonder to what extent we can then assume that some of these cash transfers are going to have an impact on nutrition, or if the fact that we're encouraging people to maybe use it on food and to kind of even designing the amount to be primarily around what would be
Ellen? Seem to have lost you mid-sentence. Hello? Ellen,
I don't know, want to answer that? Maybe Blake, if you have anything, or do you want me to jump in first?
If you want to jump in, that would be great. And I'll think of something to do while you're jumping in.
Okay. So from my perspective, because I was at the Global Health Cluster on the cash task team last week, in fact, it seems that, and that's something that discussed during the grand bargain too, whatever the amount you are given, a part of it is also going not only for food, but also for different topics. It's why it's considered like when you are giving cash, it's unconditional by nature, they can use that whatever they want. And that's something that we see in the MAM-out study. Quite a lot of things are going to health, to go to the health center, for example. In fact, it was not something that we expect really, but it's something true. And it's exactly what the health cluster is considering, is to try to understand a bit better how the person are using the cash, to maybe integrate more the health component into the minimum expenditure basket. So I think for now it's something like under reflection, but it may have some impact on nutrition at the end. So from my perspective, cash is definitely not only for food. I don't know if it's give you food for thought, or if it's unclear.
And I think there's also a difference that we need to, I mean, we've been pushing for the MEB to be taken into consideration when we calculate the amount, rather than the food basket, which is then linked to a strong push for toward food expenditure. So the MEB is way more based on all the needs, and to be able to, yes, have them use the money for food, but also being able to spend the money on something else. So that's why we are pushing strongly for the MEB rather than the food basket only.
Right, and just to further contribute, I think we have to think about how people spend money here and what that means, because you are, with cash, more so than with vouchers, actually empowering people to make their own decisions. And we know from other sorts of research that for every dollar someone gets, there's no one who spends the full dollar just on food. However, there is very rarely a person who doesn't spend some of that dollar on food. It's just human behavior. Food and shelter have it easy, basically. People know that they need these things and are open to meeting their needs with anything you provide them. I think when we get to wash and nutrition, it becomes a bit different, because that potentially requires some behavior change in addition to what people are already doing. And in general, we're just less good as humanitarians at inducing behavior change than we are at having people do things that they're already apt to do, which includes buying food. Most people are very aware of how to buy food. They know what to do. They know where to get it. They know what they like. Now, what that means for nutrition is different than some of these food security indicators where we're seeing people are spending more on food. The quality of people's diet is improving a little bit. What exactly that means sort of varies a lot by area. So I think one thing we need is a lot more nutrition evidence from a lot of unrestricted cash programs, because there's not necessarily a lot of actual anthropometric data being gathered in these contexts that would give us a bit more information about how people are behaving. And then when we are doing cash or vouchers with a nutrition objective in mind, just gathering a lot more about all these program design issues. What about, like the Haiti group mentioned, what about the timing and the seasonality are so important in a lot of these places? What about the amount could further push us towards meeting nutrition objectives? Because it's not as straightforward as it is. If you give people money, they're perfectly willing to buy food. No one has to be convinced that they need food. So it's a different objective. And granted, having food is necessary, but it's not sufficient for meeting a nutrition objective, and especially over the long term.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Any other questions? Apologies, it's a little loud behind me. Great. No, I think that this has been a really enlightening overview, and it's great to have this forum to share these perspectives. It's definitely interesting, and I think that the common trend has been we need more research and we need more evidence moving forward. So a big part of learning and what we do as a learning organization is making sure that every research, every evidence that comes out of the work that we do, be it, RCT, proper research proposals, or even in our program and implementation phase, gets capitalized on, gets worked on, and translate into the work that we put forward in the next year. So I'm looking forward to continuing to see lessons from the work that we do. Any closing words before we say thank you to our participants and send everyone on their way? All right, well, hearing none, thank you to everyone for joining. I really appreciate it. This webinar has been recorded and will be shared with the Learning Working Group, and you will have it to be shared and internal with anybody who couldn't make it today. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.